Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Great to have you along. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Dr. Eugene K. Choi. Eugene is a transformational leadership coach who teaches executive leaders and business owners how to achieve and sustain peak performance in high stress, high stakes, and high change environments. With a background in clinical pharmacy, neuroscience, and business coaching, Eugene has helped thousands of entrepreneurs and executives optimize their mindset, reduce toxic stress, and lead with more impact. Hugely important areas. I'm very keen to dive into it. But firstly, Eugene, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, good stuff. And you are in sunny LA County, is that right? Or
yeah, I used to work at L County, but I moved to Orange County now. So I'm in sunny Orange County in California now. Yeah.
Nice. So we're going to dive into what you do and stuff. But speaking of LA County, I believe the work you're doing and so on, a lot of that has derived or been driven by your experience in the LA County's health system. Can you tell us a bit about that and what led to the creation of what you do now?
Yeah, so I've made quite a few transitions. So one of the things that happened was I left New York, where I was practicing as a pharmacist, did a little bit of filmmaking full-time for a little bit, which that was a whole other endeavor that got some cool experience out of that with marketing experience. But then I ended up back in pharmacy for a little bit because I was living the starving artist lifestyle for a little bit. We ran out of money and I managed to get promoted. So here I am, I think less than 2 years of starting as a staff pharmacist in LA County. They promote me to a supervisor, and now I'm managing 6 major hospitals and over 200 clinics in LA County, in Los Angeles County. So I quickly realized, I was just like, oh my gosh, leadership is tough. It's really tough. Honestly, the unnecessary drama, the politics, the bureaucracy, it almost reminded me of high school a little bit. You see all of that stuff happening behind the scenes, which I can imagine like HR deals with a lot too, right? Like on the brink of it, because I've had to deal with HR with various things. But that got me started down this path of like, what does it really take? Like, what does it really take to not just perform at your best, but also to help a team perform at their best? And that led me down this rabbit hole. My healthcare background really helped me because that's when it helped me discover neuroscience. There's actual science and data behind how the brain works, how to help it work better. And one of the things that my filmmaking background helped with was, this is such a complex topic, right? If you go to someone at the dinner table, go, you want to talk neuroscience? So what the filmmaking experience taught me was, how do you take a complex subject and not only make it simple to understand and entertaining to hear, but easy to implement? So that's what I started doing. I started sharing information in a way that's a complex topic, but make it even enjoyable to learn about and apply it in our own lives and experience the benefit for ourselves. And that became a hit. So that's in essence why I left behind that pharmacy life, even though it was a, steady, great income, 6-figure salary, all that stuff. And I left it behind to continue teaching others because it's been working.
And you're being modest, but on the film side of things, you've had a few views along the way, right?
Yeah. So the reason I say that taught me about marketing experience was we created multiple short films with the group I was working with. They're called Jubilee Media. They got pretty big now. I think they just crossed like an audience of 10 million subscribers at this point. I was with them when they were starting off. So we were creating multiple pieces where we create these short videos on YouTube and they're generating millions and millions of views. So the biggest one I worked on crossed the 23 million view mark.
Wow.
So that's when you realize when it comes to marketing, whoa, there is a method to the madness. How do you create a piece of information, a piece of content, and express that in a way that people want to share what you shared? That's in essence what going viral is does the thing that you're sharing make other people want to share it too? And then it catches like wildfire and a bunch of people share it, and that's what gets all the views. Yeah, it was definitely helping me with my own marketing, with my business, because one of my articles went viral as well. And that's what enabled me to go full-time in my business.
To summarize some of that in my own mind, creating that content, particularly for YouTube or for video formats, it's not just about creating preachy or informative or helpful stuff. It's to make it shareable, that people will elevate their status or make friends or make people laugh or make people learn by sharing it, as opposed to just learning something themselves. That's a powerful message for anyone trying to do any marketing at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, information's gotten so much cheaper now. The moment AI came out, information became cheaper than before. Because the moment internet came out, I remember having to do a book report with a stack of textbooks. And you're spending hours trying to find that one sentence. But the moment the internet came out and a search engine came out, boom, just like that, you have access to information so much faster. It's so much cheaper. And you don't have to spend as much human power, mental power, and energy and time to find that piece of information. Now AI can think for you. So where does the demand go when in terms of the supply of the information has gone up? It's an emotional demand. In marketing, we have to learn how to tap into connecting with that other individual or that audience. And that's what we learned and practice more. And I think it's going to be more in demand now because information's even cheaper. Why do people get addicted to scrolling social media? It's because they want to feel something. So in essence, when it comes to marketing too, we need to develop that skill because what most marketers do is just throw information at you and hope it works, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I remember years ago reading a book called, I think it was First Break All the Rules. It's all about the strengths finder by the Gallup organization and so on. But I remember reading, maybe it was in the opening chapter that the 90s or whatever the Clinton era was, just that era, there was a lot of research and a lot of money being spent. And I think the book called it The Decade of the Brain. And they were saying that there's a lot of energy, but that is more than tripled, whatever, multiple fold increase in the research and so on. So I'm imagining we know so much more on the neuroscience and so on. So before we get into that, what are the challenges and the problems that you help business owners and executive leaders solve when it comes to that world of neuroscience?
Yeah. So, a lot of the people we work with have reached a certain amount of success, right? They've considered themselves high performers. They're good at what they do. They can sense and feel this feeling of like, there's another level here that I'm missing out on. Like, what is that extra hidden gear that I'm not tapping into that can produce more exponential results that can leverage and create more opportunity? So that's what I basically help them tap into is once you learn some of this science, you actually find this extra level of performance that you're able to tap into that you never knew you had. It's either that or you were aware that it's there, you just didn't know how to tap into it. So I show the basic science behind how to do that. Life on the daily for most people is an environment of stress. There's a lot of change happening. There's high stakes involved, high pressure. So how do you continue to perform even better despite that outer circumstance you're dealing with or the challenges that you're dealing with?
Isn't it just obvious to people that I'm doing X, but I should be doing X plus 1 or X plus 10 or whatever it may be? Shouldn't we just know that and therefore do it?
That's the big problem, isn't it? I think the universal thing that a lot of us can relate to is I know what I should do, but I don't feel like it. I know I should eat better to be healthier, but I don't feel like it, so I won't do it. I know I should go work out at the gym to get more physically fit, but I don't feel like it, so I won't do it. That's the universal thing. Like we were mentioning earlier, it's not that they don't know what they should do. I think that's what I found the majority of the time, especially as a business coach. After coaching hundreds and hundreds of businesses over the years, I found, the majority of you actually just know already what to do. Why aren't you doing it? So this is why I went down the rabbit hole of the science and all that. And then that's what made sense to me. Oh, this is why people don't do it. It's not because they're stupid. It's because their brain's operating a certain way. If they learn how to work with their brain, they can change those habits.
So can you explain a bit on that, both on the negative and on the positive? What is the neuroscience on the negative aspects, such as, self-sabotage, holding ourselves back, not doing enough, whatever it may be, through to the other side of really accelerating the good things or accentuating them?
Okay, so we have to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, if that's okay.
Oh, here we go.
So here's the first thing we need to understand. So your brain and your nervous system operates in only one of two states at any given time. It's what I call either a survival state or an executive state. Your whole nervous system, it's one or the other. It is actually that simple. So the thing to understand about a survival state is it's when your brain feels threatened in any way. And I'm talking physically threatened. So if you feel physically threatened in any way, your brain has to go into this reactive mode where you cannot think. You're reacting without thinking, because if you're in a life-threatening situation and you sit there and you start thinking, it's already too late. You might die. So the key quality of the survival state, the thing to understand though, is you cannot think in the survival state. So the executive state is where your brain's higher function comes from. We're talking your ability to solve problems, your critical thinking skills, your ability to have empathy, to connect with someone. This is turned on only in your executive state. So your creativity comes from your executive state. The list is long. Your ability to make good decisions, which is known as executive function, right? If you want to know the lingo behind it. So all of these things are amazing capabilities of your brain. So here's the big problem based on the research. Majority of our adult lives, we're not in the executive state. The research shows that for a majority of adult lives, based on what people self-report, we're actually in a state of survival. One number I've come across is that for 70% of our adult lives, we're in a state of survival.
Ouch.
So that means for 70% of our adult lives, our critical thinking skills are off, our creativity is off, our ability to connect with other people is turned off, which is why a lot of marketing doesn't work, if you know what I mean. Because if we're doing marketing in a state of survival, they can tell. If you've ever had those sleazy sales conversations, like, you don't care about me, you're just here to try to make some money. I don't want to give it to you. So all of these things are shut off for a majority of our adult life. Because remember, it's only one or the other. You're only in survival or you're only in executive state. You can't be in both at the same time. So then the question is, why? Why are we in a state of survival for a majority of adult lives if we're not physically threatened? So here's where the research comes in that's interesting. So it turns out we're not in a state of survival because we're running away from saber-toothed tigers every day like we used to be. It's because we're surviving from feelings that don't feel comfortable. So we have to ask ourselves, how often am I feeling stressed? How often am I feeling anxious? How often am I feeling depressed or annoyed or frustrated? All of these feelings that feel uncomfortable. Because what the research shows is that emotional pain can be just as painful as physical pain, the way that the brain processes information. So in a way, your brain kind of gets fooled into thinking, whoa, these uncomfortable feelings are actually life-threatening. Quick, turn on survival state. And the reason that works against us is if your life's not actually in danger, the things you need in that moment are not being accessed. So if you ever have that experience of, why am I getting in my own way? Why do I self-sabotage? Guess what? Guaranteed, some sort of survival state activity is happening in your nervous system. So that's the first thing to understand now. So then now we're going down the rabbit hole. It's like, how do we overcome these things that we experience? How do we overcome these mindset experiences? So I'm just kind of curious for you, like, what are you finding most of your audience struggles with based on what you've heard or feedback you've gotten or people you've worked with? What do you feel like is the biggest, like, hey, like, these are the things that they struggle with that get in their way?
Yes, the three big audiences, one for internal leaders inside corporations, larger organizations. It's part of that dynamic of trying to effect change as a solo person, one person making a difference and influencing and having that business alignment, etc. For leaders inside consulting firms and tech firms in the HR space that are mid to large or whatever, they've got so many options, and how do they find the right options and allocate the resources and energy in the right way? And then for the solo operators, and then there's a lot more of the mental game of, I would estimate 30% of people have things like self-sabotage or limiting beliefs, things like that, which probably alludes to what you're describing about holding themselves back or underlying pressures, if you like, and that I see being brought to life in that 30% group, let's say, trying to give stuff away for free or for really cheap. Can I pick your brain? Oh, sure. Here's my time. I don't value it very much. Not selling it enough and having the confidence in the sales and stuff. So there are some of the examples across those three audiences.
Okay, that's great. So we can show how survival state shows up in all three of those audiences, actually, right? This is the most important first step. And I shout this from the rooftops wherever I can, whenever people have questions about it. And this is the first thing I recommend to every client I ever work with, is the awareness part is the most important piece. We need to pay attention. So a lot of us aren't even aware of what survival state actually looks like in our daily lives. We think it's just normal for us. Like, we think this is life. Like, we're just supposed to be stressed out all the time and anxious all the time. So we need to look at what does survival state actually look like. So in a life-threatening situation, it's easy to know what a fight, flight, freeze response looks like. Because here's the thing, your brain, when you're in survival, those are the only three things it knows how to do: fight, flight, or freeze. That's it. And you do it without thinking. And it's your brain trying to actually keep you alive because it thinks it's about to get killed. So fight, you might pick up a weapon to fight in a life-threatening situation. You might run for your life in flight, or you play dead and freeze. That's what the freeze response is. Possums are notorious for doing something like that because their predators like their food alive, so they just play dead. So humans, though, because we're surviving from our emotions that don't feel good on a daily basis, people don't realize we still do the fight, flight, freeze response. We don't connect the dots on what this actually looks like. So this was the big aha for me that I've been trying to teach, because this is the most important first step that starts the rabbit hole of this journey of helping you perform at a higher level. So what does a fight response look like? Imagine someone says something hurtful, your brain feels threatened, and now you get defensive, and you get into an argument, and now you're getting into a fight. That's a fight response. And the sad thing about that is when we do it with our loved ones, when we get into a fight with them, the brain in the moment is actually viewing that person as a threat. So your brain's actually trying to attack that person. Most of the time it's verbally attacking them, isn't it? And unfortunately in, situations, it could be physically attacking as well. That's also a fight response. Flight mode looks like things like procrastination. It's usually some sort of fears going, there's an insecurity there or a fear there. Hey, what if I do this now and I don't do it right? What if I do this now and I get embarrassed? What if I do this now and I find out I'm not capable? Whatever the case may be. So your brain flees from doing that task as a survival mechanism because it feels uncomfortable. So that's why procrastination happens. Sometimes it's physically running from someone as well, right? Whether it's you see an old colleague that you hated, like down the street, you're trying to avoid them. One of the stories I like to share is my friend and I, when I was in high school in New York City, we would take the subway to high school together. And there's one of these Korean ladies. We see her from the corner of our eye trying to approach us. She has all these pamphlets in her hand. We clearly know she's trying to convince us to do something, which was to start going to her church. Yeah. So my friend and I are both Korean. So she approached us seeing that we're Asian and asked us in Korean, 한국 분이세요? Which translates to, are you Korean? And we're in our flight mode. Like we want to get to school. We don't want to talk to this lady. So my friend reacts without thinking and he responds, 아니요, which means no, I'm not Korean. But he just said it in Korean. So this is why we make silly mistakes or stupid mistakes, people would call them, when our brain's in flight mode. We're not thinking. Freeze mode is when we freeze. If you ever see a kid, freeze because they got caught in a lie, it's their brain going, quick, pretend you don't exist right now, and this person maybe will stop bothering you. And the funny part is we do this as kids, but we do it as adults too, right? And I'm sure HR people see that a lot too when they're confronting someone with an issue. You see the freeze response when they get caught. So here's the thing though, it's just like it gets more subtle. This is the part where it goes deep because I want people to practice this every day of their lives, because guess what? Awareness is the thing that gives you the power to change. If you have a piece of broccoli stuck in your teeth, how do you have the power to remove that piece of broccoli? Unless someone brings it to your awareness. Someone has to be able to either point it out to you or you see it in the mirror. It's the awareness that gives you the power to change. So this is the exercise that I always emphasize as a step one. Awareness, awareness, awareness. Because guess what? The fight, flight, freeze response gets really subtle. There's more that most people aren't even aware of. What about the fight response? A lot of high performers are actually in the fight response. That's still survival. You're not accessing the higher functions of your brain. So what do I mean by this? People who overwork. That's a fight response. Why do we overwork? Usually there's some need to prove ourselves, that we're worthy, that we're good enough. Why are we working so hard? To prove ourselves. I had a client once that had everything you could imagine. The beautiful home, the multi-million-dollar business. Everything was going for him. He was in the 60s and he's going, why am I still feeling so anxious and stressed out and unhappy, unfulfilled? We're going over the fight, flight, freeze response. And he has this big connect the dots aha moment going, I spent my whole life fighting. I was like, fighting for what? Fighting to prove that I'm better than my older brother. So you see, his older brother was an NFL football player. He was a professional football player. And my client was remembering that when he was in high school, he remembers very vividly his football coach said to him, you're never going to be as good as your brother. Don't even bother trying. And that hurt so much that he spent his whole life fighting to prove, no, I'm going to be better than my older brother. How did he prove it? He tried to accomplish more, get more money, more status. And you see, the thing with the fight response is it always leads to a lack of fulfillment and burnout. And most people don't realize that. So a lot of people are proud that they're in the fight response. It's like, look at all these things I've accomplished because I've worked so hard. But usually what happens is relationships are falling apart. Because remember, when you're in the fight mode, you're not empathetic. You're actually very transactional. Right? Yeah. Who here likes transactional relationships? Nobody. So the other thing with the fight response too is, it's interesting because people in their fight response can become very financially successful, but on the inside, it's kind of deteriorating. And I think different people realize it at different stages in their life. So one client was, when I was working with him, he started debating me. He's like, no, you need this sometimes to survive. He's like, you don't understand. I hit rock bottom. My second wife left me and I had children. The court still ordered me to pay over $2,000 a month in child support. And I ran out of money. I went broke. And I had to keep my head down and put my shoulders up and bash through concrete wall to get to where I am today. So he built, from that rock bottom, he built a very successful company. And I said, hey, that's fair. I'm not saying what you should have, would have, could have done. The past is the past. But all I'm saying is when you learn this information, what if because you learned how to get into your executive state, even if it's for just a moment? I used this analogy. I said, what if instead of having to put your head down and your shoulder up, bash into concrete walls, even if it's for a moment, what if it helped you put your head up and your shoulders down? And maybe what you saw was, whoa, these concrete walls I'm bashing through are only 3 feet wide. Yeah. Meaning, why am I running through them when I can just do other...
There's a door just next to it, yeah.
There's just a door next to it. What happens in our fight mode, imagine a tiger goes into your room ready to attack you. Are you going to look anywhere else except where the tiger is? Our brain is wired to focus on threats. It's what kept us alive all these years.
Yeah.
But what happens, though, is if your life is not in physical danger, your brain goes into that tunnel vision. It focuses on the thing that you think is the problem. But what are you missing out on outside of the tunnel? Guess what? When you go into executive state, you can see better solutions, ideas, creative opportunities. This is the whole saying, work smarter, not harder. When we're in the fight mode, we're working harder, but we're not working smarter because your brain cannot think. We're just in that tunnel vision. So that's where fight response gets very subtle. And a lot of high performers, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners tend to be in that fight mode because guess what? I need to work hard. I need to keep working harder. But they stay stuck in the hamster wheel. Why is my business not growing? Why is my team not performing? People who fight for their ego, a lot of leaders are in a fight mode trying to prove to people, I'm a good leader. But your empathy's not on when you're in the fight mode. You don't care about the team. You just care about people acknowledging you're a good leader. But the irony is you being in the fight mode makes you not a good leader. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
The alternative to the battling through it workaholic type would be those who are working on lots of admin and just doing lots of busy stuff.
Exactly.
Which doesn't necessarily have such a big impact, but I'm fixing my website, a new logo, just stuff that feels like you're doing something constructive, but really not. That strikes me as something around avoidance of putting your head up.
Yes, that could be a flight mode, right? I can totally relate to that. The amount of times I've worked with business owners and you're right, they just keep working on their logo or their website. And I'm like, okay, now that you worked on it, how many clients has it brought you?
Exactly. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
And I try to explain to people, my first 6 figures in business was without a website.
Yeah.
It was with a Word document.
Yeah.
That had the proposal on it. Like a very simple, nothing fancy, nothing designed. So this is where the flight mode comes in. It gets really subtle. Like we avoid the things that are uncomfortable to do. That will probably be the thing that gets you the result you want anyway. Right?
So you've described the negative situation and then the why, what's sort of causing it. And then part of the how is that awareness piece, not even a piece, it's the central element. The awareness lets you move things forward. But then how do you maintain or improve to establish that muscle memory, let's say, to move away from that bad behavior and do more of the good stuff?
Right. So when you understand the subtleties of what's actually causing the bad behavior, is it a fight response, is it a flight response, or freeze response? At some point you go, I can see it. I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. How do I change that? Right? So one is just practice on the daily. Because, for example, like a subtle flight response is when we start numbing ourselves. Everyone does it. There's no judgment around it. By the way, judging someone is a fight response. I'm insecure about myself, so I'm going to fight to try to put you down in an effort to put me up in some way. That's what's really going on. It's very important for leaders to understand this, right? But we all numb ourselves. Some people overindulge in things like food, alcohol, sex, drugs to the point of addiction. But that's what a flight mode actually is. We're avoiding the thing that we don't want to confront. So we distract ourselves. Freeze mode, when some traumatic news happens, we freeze, unfortunately. And one of the things I realized too is when we're scared, we don't make decisions. Or when we're stressed, we don't try to make important decisions. The big aha moment I had about that is there's no such thing as laziness. Someone we might label as lazy, there's a very high chance that they have some sort of chronic freeze response going on in their nervous system. So they can't take action. So anyway, so when we become aware of all of this, then it leads to this question you're asking. So what do we do about it now that once we're aware? So here's the next big thing about how the brain works is by the time you're about 35 years old, guess what? 90 to 95% of your brain goes subconscious. So what does that mean? It's on autopilot. Your brain has formed all these habits at this point where your brain will do the things without you telling it to do it. Think about it. Do you go down the stairs or up the stairs when you go a flight of stairs going, let me think about this. I got to put my left foot out now. Let me put my right foot. We don't do that. We do it without thinking. Most people don't realize the same exact thing applies to our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So we think about 70,000 thoughts a day. 90 to 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before. Majority of these thoughts are actually negative thoughts about ourselves. What state does that put us in? Survival or executive state? So we're thinking the same thoughts every day. We're also feeling the same feelings every day. Your body, just like it can get addicted to a chemical drug, like a recreational drug, such as heroin, cocaine, whatever the case may be. Most people don't realize our feelings are chemicals too. We get addicted to the feelings of our chemicals. Because what's happening is the moment you have a thought, if you put a brain scan on someone's head, guess what's happening? There's electrical activity happening in your brain. And the brain cells are communicating through electricity. It's making its way down your spinal cord. Between your nerve cells, there's chemicals coming out to communicate with the next nerve cell. So it makes its way down your spinal cord, hits one of your hormones, your hormonal centers, and it releases a hormone. And now you're feeling the feeling of that hormone. So what does that mean? Imagine you're just an angry person. You tend to be an angry person that thinks a lot of angry thoughts. Your brain is conducting electricity, eventually hitting your adrenal glands, and now it's releasing adrenaline when you're angry. So you're feeling the feeling of anger. You see what I'm saying? So what happens though, you do that enough times, you feel the feeling enough times, your body without thinking goes, this is my normal feeling. Stress is the normal feeling. Anger is the normal feeling. Frustration, now it's addicted to that feeling. So what happens in the morning, for example, is you wake up, if you're an angry person, then your body's going, hey, I don't have my anger. Just like a drug addict. Hey, brain, I need my fix of anger. Can you give me my anger? So now you might think about all the work you have to do today, the in-law that you don't like, or the boss you don't like. And all those chemicals are coming through your body, and now you're feeling the feeling of anger. And while you're going, oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm so angry, your body's going, oh, this feels so good, I got my fix. So we get addicted to the feelings too. And guess what? We act based on our feelings. This is the whole thing we were talking about earlier. We know what's good for us, but because we don't feel like it, we don't do it. So we're very emotional beings. This is what makes us human, but it's the feelings that drive the behavior. So if we're feeling a state of survival, guess what we're doing? The behavior is not an action. It's a reaction. We do it without thinking, and we get caught up in this loop. Oh, I know I should grow my business, but I'm feeling anxiety. So I'm not going to do the thing that's going to help me grow my business.
So what if you know this? What are the steps or things you can do to flip that switch?
So this is where the rabbit hole goes deep. There's short-term work you can do. There's like the quick tips. Like for example, one of the things I always recommend in the short term, like when you're in the moment, when you're aware I'm in survival right now, what can I do? There's an example, something called name it to tame it. It's in the psychology world. So what that means is name your feelings to tame your feelings. So UCLA out in California did this study once where they had a group of people. They would show with brain scans tied to their heads. The researchers would show them photos of people's faces in survival state emotions. So we're talking anger, anxiety, depression. The moment they show the photo to the individual, guess what happened? Their survival state brain started turning on. But what happened was the researcher said, can you tell me what feeling this person is feeling in this photo? The moment they named the feeling, oh, that's anger, that's sadness. Guess what happened? Survival state brain turned off, executive state brain turned on. Why does this happen? It's because in order to label something, it requires you to think about it. Remember, our brain can't think when we're in survival. So when you just simply say, oh, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling anxious, you're literally turning on this executive state brain, where also is where your emotional regulation centers are located. Your ability to regulate your emotions are all there. You're calling on it to turn on and calm your brain down so the higher functions of your brain can turn on. So something you can do anytime. Oh, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling joyful. And one of the important things too is how you describe it. There are people who say, I am sad. The phrase I am is a declarative statement. You're saying like it's like your identity. It's permanent. Yeah. I am sadness. Yeah. So if you just switch that language to I'm feeling sad, it helps your brain acknowledge the impermanence of the feeling, because feelings aren't permanent. Sometimes you feel sad, sometimes you feel happy. Feelings come and go. The other one is, this is why people say take deep breaths. When you take deep breaths, you're actually tickling something called your parasympathetic nerves at the bottom of your lungs where your diaphragm is. And it's signaling to your body, like, I'm not being physically harmed right now. You can calm down. Because your body is overworking, wasting a lot of energy when it's in survival, because what's happening when your body feels threatened? Heart rate's going up, lungs are breathing faster, your digestive system's shutting down, which is why a lot of stressed out people have digestive issues. And these are the kinds of short tips. The longer term tips is to really start working with your own thinking. It's like, why do I believe this? Why do I think this way? And really start understanding how to rewire that. That's the rabbit hole I've been going down with a lot of my leaders. Is like, how do you actually transform culture? How do you transform a personality? This is an actual skill we can learn. There's something called neuroplasticity. It's our brain's ability to rewire itself, change its connections in our brain. We know more about the brain than we ever did in the past 20 years in all of history, all of the findings we've had. So neuroplasticity is one of those things. Our brain has the ability to change until our dying breath. They prove
Which is a good thing.
It's a great thing. It proves those myths wrong. If you ever hear those sayings, at least here in the States, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
Old people are set in their ways. Oh,
Sure.
This person will never change. Total BS. Not true at all. The science is showing you can change your brain till your dying breath. So there's 3 evidence-based ways that promote neuroplasticity based on current research. One is meditation. There's so much research around this, our ability to meditate, and that's a whole other rabbit hole of like, how do I do it right? The second thing is aerobic exercise. So your heart rate has to get to a certain level. That's aerobic exercise. Where your heart rate's getting to a certain level, it promotes a lot of stimulation in the brain, right? All of that. And then, there's something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's like the nutrition for your brain, right? More of that comes out. And lastly, it's novelty, which is just a fancy term for new experiences. So travel is a perfect example of that. When you travel, it stimulates brain change. You see different people's perspectives, different culture. And it doesn't have to be something as big as travel. It could be something as small as take a different road home from work today. Work from a different room. It could be brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. So when you do these things, it stimulates neuroplasticity, which helps increase your chances of changing some of your autopilot. And then the work gets really deeper because what's happening for a lot of people, though, is the autopilot is like a whole belief system that they carry about their own lives, about themselves, about the world. And that, in essence, keeps them stuck in that state of survival. So when we learn to also work with our own thinking, whether it's getting support from someone that can help you with that, whether it's a coach, a therapist, or whatever it is, that helps change the autopilot inside of yourself as well.
I don't want to go too far deep into the thing because people listening to this, if they want help with this or whatever, they should probably get in touch with you or learn from your content resources and stuff. But the whole morning routine thing, it's almost an industry. How do you see it? What's your advice? Is it a central thing? Is it nice to do? Is it critical? What's your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I think it's overhyped.
Right.
And at the same time, I don't think it's something that wouldn't work. I think it works for many people, but it also doesn't work for other people, depending on that individual, right? We're all a very complex species. Not every brain is the same. Not every personality is the same. But the intention behind the morning routine is actually a great thing. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to shift your autopilot. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to create a different autopilot in replacement of an autopilot that's not working for you. I mean, there's a lot of research behind this too, right? Like, was it Daniel Pink, I want to say? He talked about like chronotypes. Like some people operate at the best during a certain time of day. So there's a group of people that actually operate the best in the mornings. But what about the group of people that actually work the best during the night or the evenings or the afternoons? So it kind of segregates them. So the intention behind it, I agree with. So what does that mean? The intention is, how do you shift your autopilot? Because if your autopilot are these bad habits that you're reacting to something in a state of survival and your brain's higher functions aren't on, then it is in our own best interest to try to shift some sort of autopilot. But most of us, the majority of the journey is just being aware of what some of this autopilot is. A lot of us, fight on autopilot, thinking that's the productive thing to do. Oh, I'm just going to work hard. Some people flee to working hard too, by the way, right? I want to avoid the issues at home, so I'm going to flee to my office and just work to keep myself distracted. So then whatever the case is, each individual, their own fight, flight, freeze response is going on, and it's happening at an autopilot level. If we understand how to customize an approach to ourselves that actually works and changes the autopilot, then I'm all for it. So for the morning routine people where it actually works, great. And at the same time, I'm cognizant, what about for the people it doesn't work? Because what solution out there works for every single person? It doesn't. We're very, unique individuals. So I'm more about, find out how to change the autopilot for you specifically based on your unique situation that you need to change that helps you get those results you're looking for. Step one is to just be aware of how this all works. You have a fight, flight, freeze response you're doing every day. Let's look at it. Because most people don't even want to look at it because it feels very vulnerable. Because some people, or most people, when you start looking at this, you question your whole life. This is why I have an addiction to alcohol. This is why I behave this way every day. This is why I have that addiction. This is why I'm always working so hard without thinking about it and neglecting my relationships. It's hard to look at this stuff because it feels so vulnerable.
I guess to wrap things up, specifically for business owners, and maybe they feel they're middle of the road, they don't have addictions, maybe they've got what they would call a healthy work-life balance and so on, but they would love to build a better business, do things better, faster, easier, however it wants to look like. What's your advice to them in the context of what we've discussed today?
Have you ever heard of the pie theory of success? Come across that?
No.
So the pie theory of success was this research done on how do people actually successfully advance their careers. This guy was studying the corporate world, but it applies to business as well. So he's like, how do actually people advance their careers? Because have you ever had that guy in the workplace like, how the heck did you get promoted over me? So like he was trying to decipher all of this, and he realized there's 3 contributing factors to the growth of your career, which also applies in the business world. I found it's the same exact thing. So it turns out pie theory, each letter stands for something, the word pie, P-I-E. So it's your performance, your image, and exposure are the 3 contributing factors to the growth of your career. So it turns out your performance, though, which means how good are you at the work you do, is only 10% of a contributing factor. So what does that mean? How good you are at your job is only a small picture to the growth of your business. Wow. It's a basic requirement. Like, yes, be competent at your job, because if you're incompetent at your job, like people are going to stop hiring you. But most people emphasize the performance. Oh, I just need to take another course and study more. I just need to work harder. I just need to show people I can work harder. But it's not as big of a contributing factor as most people think to the growth of your business and to the growth of your career too, if you're in the corporate world. So it turns out your image is 30% of a contributing factor. How people perceive you. Do I like you? Do I not like you? So if you really think about sales calls when they're getting closed, that's where most people are really doing in the back of their heads. Like they don't want to spend too much time on, are you able to do the job? A lot of the focus on the brain is, do I trust this person? Do I like this person or not? Would I be willing to sit down and have a meal with this person and talk to this person? If they don't like you, they're not going to hire you. And this is the vulnerable part. Most people don't want to address the fact is maybe the way you're marketing, people are just not liking it, or they're not liking you, or the way that you're presenting yourself. It's 3 times more important than how good you are at your job. So guess what? That person that got hired, that you're like, how the heck did you get hired? It's because whoever had the decision-making power liked that person more than you. I'm sorry. And I can attest to this as a former manager too. If I had to choose between a guy who's very qualified, looks very smart, everything looks great on paper, but I'm sitting with you and the way you're coming across to me in a social interaction feels really off, my brain's going, do I want to spend 40 hours a week with this person? If the answer is no, I'm sorry, I'm not hiring you. But compare that to the person who might not be as impressive on paper, but 3 people within my team are going, you really need to take this person. They're really good. Like I can vouch for this person. Through that secondary trust, I go, you know what? I'll give you a shot. And they end up usually being the ones that help produce the most results anyway, compared to the one that looks great on paper. So this is why image in the world of business, that's called branding. Branding is so important. How you come across to people. And guess what? If you're in survival state all the time, the way you come across to the market,
you'll never expand that aspect. Yeah.
They're not going to like it. They're not going to resonate with you. If anyone's ever been part of an uncomfortable sales conversation where someone's trying to hard sell you something, you know how that feels. That comes off a certain way. That's why you don't like it. And you know you're never going to pay this person money. I hate to say this, but you're doing the same exact thing to people in your marketing if you're operating from a state of survival. They can sense it. They can feel it. It's our prerogative to make sure that we teach ourselves the survival state stuff and be aware of it, because it'll come across in your branding, by the way.
What was the E in PI? Sorry.
Exposure.
Oh, exposure.
So if people don't know you, how are they going to give you the opportunity? You could be the best performing person, the most likable person in the world, but if the right people don't know who you are, how do you ever get the opportunity? And a lot of people don't like networking, putting themselves out there, meeting people, because guess what? It's all a vulnerable process. So our brain just goes into survival mode. You might hold yourself off in flight going, I'll just stay home instead of trying to meet these people or take this chance or try this new thing. Our survival state behavior wants us to keep things familiar. We don't like going into unknown territory. You stay in one spot. You don't go into uncertain territory. You don't get killed by a wild animal. There's no risk of that.
I'm that guy. I would stand against the wall at a networking event, or if I did get the courage to speak to someone, I would then have a cup of tea or coffee with them for the next hour and not speak to 10 people. But when I first launched my HR consulting business, I was doing that. But the world has moved on in such different ways that here we are talking on video with audio, and there's content. There's all sorts of different ways of getting that exposure without having to be slinging awkward, icky ways that don't necessarily match your style. If you are good at networking and you love getting into that, then fantastic. But there are so many other options. So I would hate for someone to hear that word E for exposure and go, oh gosh, that's me out.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I'm that guy too. I'm actually a very private person. I'm very introverted. I get my energy from being on my own versus like being in a large group of people. But that's the thing is, the exposure and your image is 90% of the success of your business, honestly speaking. And it has to be in that order. Your performance, meaning you have to be competent. You need to look at what do people care about? How do you present yourself so that there's alignment in the values between you and the particular party you want to do work with that you would enjoy as a client. And then lastly, getting the exposure so that the more people know about you, the more clients come in. But most people do it out of order. I've seen business owners make so many mistakes. I pay $10,000 a month. The guy promised me that he'll turn on Google ads for me and I'll have clients streaming in the door. But because the image wasn't there, guess what happens? It doesn't convert. It doesn't turn into sales. And then there's people who just work on their image. I've been branding myself with this branding expert for the past 2 years. Okay, if you got it to the place that your ideal client would want to buy, are you getting the exposure? Like, are you networking? Or you might have a podcast. Are you presenting the right image? Are you talking about the right things that the people you want exposure to, when they hear what you're talking about, it converts. They go, tell me more about this. This is the thing I needed.
You're on the other way. I know plenty of businesses out there that have got wonderful exposure. They're all over the place and they're very friendly and people get to know them and all that sort of stuff. But then when the service or the product is actually delivered, people just go, oh, no thanks. And so they've got churn and turnover. So you've got to be competent as well. All those things in one place.
That's the performance part, right? Is the offer actually delivering what you're promising it will offer, right? And it's the image that will convert. If the image is not there, you might be networking and talking to 1,000 people, but you're not getting clients. Hey, something's wrong with the conversion here, AKA your branding, your image, your marketing, your copywriting, all of that. So,
Eugene, you've shared so many deep insights and powerful pieces of advice and so on. So is there a formula for creating a video that captures that attention, that not necessarily go viral, but has a bigger impact? There's people, for instance, on LinkedIn, which is different to YouTube, but they're being told, make more videos, do things. What's your advice as a former video expert?
Yeah, there's a lot of slop out there. There's a lot of crappy content out there, honestly speaking, right? There is no step-by-step formula, unfortunately. I would love if it was that simple. And total side comment, our survival brain wants simplicity. It goes into black and white thinking. I don't like gray area. Just give me the silver bullet answer. It never exists, but there is a framework. So in the filmmaking world, I like to explain it this way. So here's what a producer does in the filmmaking world. There's lots of different types of producers, but view it like the COO of a company. It's very operational. You're getting the tasks done, you're arranging things. So, a producer on a film can do various responsibilities, whether it's I figure out where we're going to film, the location, the logistics. An executive producer helps you figure out how are the cast and crew going to get paid. Other producers find the cast and crew, like I need to get the people together. So it's very logistical. So there is structure to a viral type content. We don't need to go into too much detail, but there's different types of frameworks people give. Make sure there's a hook, like something that attracts attention in the first 5 seconds. And then make sure that there's something called a hero's journey. There's a storytelling framework, right? Main character has a problem. Make sure you address the problem. If you don't talk about the problem, people aren't interested. This is why every movie you ever watch, guaranteed, it's a screenwriting rule 101. In the first 10 minutes, the audience should know what the big problem is. Guy wants to get the girl, villain came out and is about to end the world. Whatever the case may be, our biological brains wants to know they're threat focused. Because if you have a story that's just all success and everything's happy, it's a boring story. So you need to get to the problem as quick as you can so that people go, oh, I know what's in it for me. I have that problem. I need this solved. And then you show them the solution, and always end with a call to action in the marketing world is call to action. Follow me. What is the next step I can take? Do this today. Take this one small step. So there's structure, okay? Like I'm just giving a very basic, brief, high-level overview. So now once you have the structure of your content done, let's say you scripted something out, you gave yourself the bullet points of talking points. The most important part, in my opinion, is what the director does. Because otherwise it won't convert. So what do I mean by this? What does a director do? One of the most important roles for a director, or my assistant director shouts action on the set, or if you're a small film, the director says it. The moment someone shouts action and the actors are performing, the director's sole responsibility is to be so focused on the performance, the emotional performance of that scene. Because the question you're answering in your head is this moment moving enough that when the viewer watches it, they will be emotionally moved in some way. Am I going to laugh? Am I going to cry? Am I going to connect with the character? So remember, AI just made intellect and information so much cheaper. I can foresee the demand for emotion going up. This is why motivational speakers get paid so much more money than a college professor who just touts or regurgitates information from a textbook. So our ability to focus on that will be the thing that makes or breaks something going viral. So the emotional shift, does it create an emotional shift in the viewer in some way? Yeah, you can just teach something, but how many people love it when they have a professor and they're sitting in a class and it's like the most monotone? You see what I'm saying? So the emotional performance of your content is very, very important. It could be something as big as a big plot twist. It could be something as small as a joke that made you laugh. Is it creating an emotional shift in your viewer? Because it creates connection between your ideal client and your brand. They feel like they're relating to you. And these days, marketing's gotten so much harder because there's something in marketing called the rule of 7, which basically is someone needs to be exposed to your brand, who you are, at least 7 times before even remembering it a little bit, or even before even deciding to trust you or not. It's now become the rule of 7 hours. What I mean by that is someone needs to have spent at least around 7 hours with you to even decide, do I like this person? Do I trust this person? Can I relate to this person? But who here has 7 hours of time to spend with every single potential client that you have? It's impossible. This is why we live in an age now. It's so amazing that we have technology. You can record one piece of content. Multiple people can watch that at the same time and spend their 7 hours with you if you eventually build out 7 hours of content, let's say, for example. That's why long form podcasts have become popular. You see what I'm saying? It's a 2-hour long episode and people are listening to it because guess what? Rule of 7 hours. I just spent 2 hours with you and it felt like I spent 2 hours with you in the room, even though I wasn't there. So I think this is where the demand is shifting towards. People want authenticity. People want the genuine relationship, especially in a digital age where you don't even know what's real anymore. Some of these videos are
so true,
amazing at how good quality they are and convincing they are. But anyway,
that emotional aspect, and the connection. So true. If people want either to work with you, get your help, maybe for an organization or for themselves personally as a business owner, what should they do next?
Yeah. So, the awareness piece is step 1 in my process. Step 2 is the training piece. So this is where the science comes in. If you want to learn a lot more deeper on the science of how these things work so you can see more results in your life, change the autopilot. I do have an online community that I launched. It's called Neurohacking School. That can be seen on neuroscience-based.com. It's a membership group. We meet once a month. There's online modules I've recorded of everything that I teach. And for the business owners, I do a live in-person mastermind group for business owners once a month here where I'm at in California. And I just recently started putting it online and making it accessible to the online community. So that's kind of the body of work that I've been working on to help empower more people to learn for themselves. How do I get out of the survival state? How do I develop the skills to change the autopilot so that everyone can together engage in step 3 of the process, which is implementation? If you don't do the things that you learn, right, you don't see the results. Correct.
Could you call out the website again?
Neuroscience-based.com.
Well, Eugene, thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing your ideas and support there. And for listeners, I would highly recommend you get in touch with Eugene via his website and check the show notes for the details. But Eugene, thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks and see you next time.